Chapter 1: The Dream Tomsmanner. It was dark outside, and I was with my friends inside an old school building. The hallways felt endless, lit only by weak lights flickering above us. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear a little girl laughing. I looked at Jake. "Did you hear that?" He slowly shook his head, clearly scared. But then that frightened expression slowly twisted into a smile. "Do you want to play?" A little girl's voice asked through his mouth. I froze. "I'm not high, am I?" I thought to myself. Then his body started to change. His shoulders widened, his arms thickened unnaturally, and before my eyes he transformed from a grown man into some giant, muscular child. "Do you want to play?" she growled again. Fear rushed through my body. I turned around and realized I was completely alone. Everyone was gone. I sprinted through the hallways as fast as I could, but every time I looked behind me, instead of getting farther away from her, she somehow got closer. It felt like I'd been running forever without moving an inch. I kept running, until finally, the floor beneath me gave way. I crashed straight into a basement. Pain shot through my body as I hit the ground. I quickly looked upward, expecting her to be there waiting for me. But there was nothing. No sign of her, but only silence. I slowly stood there, breathing heavily. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my chest while faint footsteps echoed above me. Tiny footsteps. A little girl jumping around upstairs. "Let's play," she sang happily. "Who wants to play?" Then suddenly, "Tom, please help," Scottish screamed. "I thought I was your sister. Why aren't you here to save me?" Irish yelled somewhere above me. Fear froze me in place for a second, but I forced myself to move. "Hang on. I'm coming," I shouted. I immediately started looking around for an exit, a staircase, anything that could get me out of there, but there was nothing. "There has to be something," I muttered to myself while searching through the darkness. Then I noticed a doll sitting in the corner. It looked exactly like Noah, even the glasses. Slowly I walked toward it, but the closer I got, the more the doll changed, until suddenly, it wasn't a doll anymore. It was Noah herself lying there on the floor. "Tom?" she gasped weakly. I immediately dropped to my knees beside her. "What's wrong?" "Come closer," she whispered softly. I leaned my ear toward her mouth. Then suddenly, "Shut the fuck up!" She burst into laughter. I stumbled backward in shock. Noah's body twisted unnaturally and transformed again. Now it was Max standing there. He stared at me without blinking, no expression and no words, just staring, and slowly he stepped closer. "Tom," he whispered. Before I could react, he suddenly lunged toward me. I flinched, but the second he got close, he disappeared completely. Gone. No sound. No trace. I stood there breathing heavily, feeling more hopeless and alone than ever. But even then, something inside me refused to give up. I can fix this, I told myself. I can get out of here. So I forced myself to think. I looked around again and noticed an old table with several chairs nearby. Quickly, I dragged the table beneath the hole I had fallen through and stacked the chairs on top of it. It looked unstable, but I climbed anyway. The wood creaked beneath me as I reached upward. Then suddenly a hand grabbed mine and pulled me out. It was Kane. Relief immediately rushed through me. "Thanks, mate," I breathed out. "It's good to see you." But like the others, he didn't answer. He just smiled, then shoved me straight back into the hole. What? I fell, and kept falling for what felt like forever until finally I hit the ground again. This time I was outside. Cold wind moved through the trees around me. "Tom," I turned around. It was Eric. Part of me wanted to believe it was actually him, but fear took over first. So I ran again, as fast as I could. Branches scratched against me while I sprinted through the darkness until eventually I saw something ahead. A giant building. It looked like a boarding school hidden in the middle of nowhere. Large gates stood in front of it, and written across them were the words, "House of L." "Hello," I yelled desperately. "Can someone please help me?" The gates slowly opened. Without wasting another second, I ran toward the entrance and reached the front door just as it opened. A man around his 30s stood there calmly. "Shalom," he greeted me warmly. "My name is Joshua. It's good to finally meet you." Relief hit me instantly. I rushed inside. "Thank you." "No problem at all," he answered gently. "Now tell me, what's going on?" As I followed him toward the kitchen, I explained everything that had happened. The girl, my friends changing, the basement, the endless running. Joshua quietly listened while preparing me a cup of English tea. "I see," he finally said. "I believe I understand the issue." Yeah, I muttered nervously. Some fucking demon child pretending to be my friends is after me. Joshua laughed softly. That does sound terrifying. Then his expression softened slightly. Or perhaps, he said calmly, you have been running away from your destiny, and now it has finally caught up to you. I frowned in confusion. What do you mean? Sometimes, Joshua explained gently, people become too comfortable with their current situation, so they keep postponing what they are actually meant to become. His eyes stayed fixed on mine. Your work, your town, your future. I stayed silent, because deep down, part of me already knew what he meant. Then Mr. Joshua slowly stepped closer and placed his hand against my forehead. Suddenly, visions flooded my mind. Different futures, different possibilities, all of them forcing me to face my greatest fears. Joshua smiled softly. Let's wake up, shall we? My alarm suddenly went off.
We are the Dalfs. Holy smoke and flashing lights, hunting shadows every night. When the dead begin to call, run and hide. Beware the Dalfs.
After the dream, I kept telling my friends about it. At first, we ignored it. We laughed it off, convinced it was just stress or some weird nightmare caused by too many horror movies and late-night gaming sessions. But then the others started having the same dream, the same school, the same little girl, the same feeling of being hunted. At that point, we couldn't ignore it anymore. So eventually, we contacted Father Mick. A month later, we all met again near Wembley Park in London. The sky was gray, typical British weather, and cold wind moved through the streets as we stood in front of a large house near the church where Father Mick worked. Tom knocked on the door. A few seconds later, it opened. Welcome, welcome. Father Mick greeted us with a warm smile. Thank you, Tom answered as we stepped inside. I looked around immediately. The house was much bigger than I expected. 3 floors, a basement, and even a garage connected to the side. Parked inside the garage was a compact RV with tinted windows. Father Mick noticed us staring. This, he said proudly, will be your new house, your operation base, and your living quarters. And as we agreed, you will also be paid by the Catholic Church. How much again? Noah asked immediately. £4,000 per person a month as starters after taxes, Father Mick answered casually. The better you get, the more it increases. Some hunters earn 7,000, some even 10. He paused for a moment, but then you really have to be good at what you do. We all looked at each other, trying our best not to react too much, because honestly, that was way more money than any of us expected. Cool, Tom muttered, trying to sound calm. So, what are the rules? Well, Father Mick smiled. You'll receive proper training from someone soon enough. But first, let me give you all a tour. The tour started upstairs. Each of us got our own room. Some were larger than others, which immediately became a problem once the girls realized it. The main floor contained the office room, the living room, dining area, and a surprisingly modern kitchen. But the basement, that was where the real operation happened. The moment Father Mick unlocked the basement door, the atmosphere changed completely. Cold air rushed upward. Inside were shelves filled with equipment, EMF readers, cameras, microphones, holy water containers, silver weapons, old books, radios, laptops, and several advanced computer systems monitoring strange activity across the country. There was also a holding room, and beside it, a reinforced containment chamber. That room, Father Mick explained seriously, is where captured spirits are kept temporarily before transfer. The entire basement was protected behind a massive metal door covered in strange writings carved into the frame. Noah stepped closer and squinted at them. Is this Hebrew? Father Mick nodded. Yes, Hebrew, Latin, and Koine Greek prayers. He placed his hand against the symbols. They are meant to keep the spirits and demons inside, not outside. A brief silence followed that explanation. All right, Tom muttered awkwardly. Once the tour ended, Father Mick eventually left us alone in the house so we could settle in. The second the front door closed, chaos immediately started. I am getting the big room, Irish yelled while grabbing her luggage and sprinting upstairs. Fuck you, Noah shouted back while rushing after her. I'm taking the room next to Scottish then. Hell yeah, Scottish yelled from upstairs. Meanwhile, the rest of us just stood there watching the madness unfold. Tom sighed deeply. We're definitely getting haunted within a week. I had just woken up and headed downstairs toward the kitchen, still half asleep. Ah! Someone screamed with such a high pitch that I nearly had a heart attack. Instinctively, I grabbed the cross lying on the dining table nearby and rushed into the kitchen, ready to fight for my life. Instead, I found Scottish standing there with messy hair sticking in every direction imaginable. I stared at her for a second before lowering the cross. For fuck's sake, I sighed. I thought you were a banshee, but it's just you in the morning before waking up properly. Scottish stared at me blankly for a moment, then punched me. Thankfully, her punch felt more like being attacked by an angry plushie than an actual human being. Rude, she muttered while fixing her hair. Later that evening, Father Mick called us to the church for our first official assignment. As we entered, we saw him talking with several other people waiting near the front pews. Father Mick immediately waved us over. Perfect timing, he said. Let me introduce everyone. He pointed toward a guy around our age with black hair. This is Mike, half Chinese, half British. Mike gave us a casual nod. Father Mick then introduced us to George, who originally came from Bulgaria, and after that to Dimitri and his girlfriend Alexandra, both from Greece. Clarence was standing beside them quietly. They're currently in London for an assignment, Father Mick explained, and they'll be helping you with your first case. I noticed all of them looked older and more experienced than us. Even the way they carried themselves felt calmer, more professional. I trust you all got your equipment ready inside the compact RV? Father Mick asked. I answered. We decided Scottish is driving. God help us, Noah muttered quietly. I heard that, Scottish snapped back. Father Mick laughed softly. All right then, let's get moving. About an hour later, we arrived at our destination. The moment I stepped out of the RV, my stomach tightened. A school, an old one. My breathing slowed as I stared at the building in front of us, the size, the shape, the atmosphere. It looked exactly like the school from my dream. For a second, I just stood there frozen while the others unloaded equipment from the van. You okay? Eric asked. Yeah, I lied quietly. Just tired. Everyone grabbed their preferred gear before splitting into groups. Mac, Noah, and Scottish formed one team. Irish stayed with me and Eric. Jake teamed up with Kane. Meanwhile, Mike and George stayed in the van outside to monitor equipment and communications, while Dimitri, Clarence, and Alexandra remained near the entrance as backup. The mission itself was supposed to be simple, a beginner assignment. According to Father Mick, the spirit inside shouldn't have been particularly dangerous, which honestly made me feel worse somehow, because every horror movie starts with someone saying that. We slowly moved through the second floor while checking temperatures and EMF levels. At first, everything seemed normal. Then suddenly the air changed. I looked down at the temperature device in my hand. 10 degrees, then 8, then 5, then nearly 0. I slowly pushed open the door to one of the classrooms. The moment the door opened, the temperature dropped to -10. We found it. I immediately spoke into the walkie-talkie before giving everyone the classroom location. Within 15 minutes, everyone regrouped inside the room and started setting up equipment. Cameras were placed in the corners, notebooks left open for spirit writing, motion sensors attached near the windows. It's really cold, man, Noah muttered while rubbing her arms. Irish casually handed her a 350 milliliter bottle of rosé wine. Alcohol keeps you warm. Or, Irish added with a wink, you can hug me instead. Ew, Noah answered immediately. Well, fuck you then. You just hate me. Scottish walked over and wrapped Noah in her oversized thick jacket. Here you go, she said proudly. Noah disappeared almost entirely inside it. Who has the spirit box? I asked. I do, Jake answered while pulling it from his pocket. Static immediately filled the room. Thus, Jake tried asking questions. Is anyone here with us? Nothing. Can you hear us? Still nothing. Maybe it only responds if it's alone, Max suggested. Honestly, it sounded like a terrible idea, which meant we immediately tried it. Everyone stepped outside the classroom, leaving Jake alone inside. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then Irish suddenly grabbed the spirit box. Let me try. We all listened through the communication devices while she walked back inside alone. Hello, she asked casually. Are you there? Do you speak English? Do you speak French? Bonjour, ça va? Silence. Then suddenly, hello. A woman's voice came through the speaker. Everyone froze. Hello, Irish answered immediately. How are you doing, babe? I am lost, the voice whispered softly. How are you? Irish grinned proudly at us through the classroom window. You have a cute voice. What's your name? My name is Yua, the spirit answered quietly. I am not supposed to be here. Ah, Irish said sympathetically while casually drinking her rosé. How come? Where are you? All I see is dark, Yua whispered. Then suddenly, wait. We heard footsteps inside the room. A second set. Oh, hey, Irish laughed nervously. You're gorgeous. Well, thank you, Yua answered sweetly. You too. Then we started hearing giggling from inside the classroom. Can you stop flirting with the ghost? Noah groaned loudly, and ask relevant questions. But before Irish could answer, furniture suddenly started moving violently inside the room. Tables slammed against walls, chairs scraped across the floor. I immediately grabbed the classroom door handle and tried opening it. Locked. Mac, Jake, and I immediately started trying to force the door open. Then suddenly, the door burst open. Irish sprinted out screaming. Run! We looked inside the room, and the beautiful Korean woman we expected looked more like if Kim Jong-un and Dwayne Johnson somehow had a daughter together. Do you want some kiss? The spirit growled happily. Noah, Kane yelled while already running away. She's your type. She's Asian. Well, first of all, fuck you, Noah shouted while backing away. Second, I'm already hugging Scottish. And third, before she could finish, everyone else had already started running. All I could hear behind me was Noah screaming, Fuck you guys! A few minutes later, Irish and I barricaded ourselves inside another classroom. So, I whispered while trying to catch my breath. What did we learn? Irish sighed. Don't flirt with ghosts. Correct. She looked around nervously. Where's everyone else? We did what you did, I answered. Ran. Then suddenly realization hit me. Oh shit. Noah and Scottish. Right as I said their names, the classroom door suddenly burst open. Both of them stormed inside before Scottish immediately poured salt across the entrance. The moment Noah saw us, she pointed directly at me. Fuck you. Then she pointed at Irish. And fuck you too for leaving us behind. Okay, I said quickly while raising both hands. Fair point. We panicked. It was impulsive. We're sorry. The room slowly went quiet again while everyone calmed down. Anyone know what type of ghost this is? I asked. Well, Irish counted on her fingers. Cold temperatures, spirit box response. And it only talks to people when they're alone, Scottish added. It's not a banshee, I pointed out while looking at Scottish. It's definitely not a demon either, she answered. I immediately contacted Mike through the radio. What does the information say about the spirit? Oh, hey, Mike answered casually. Glad you guys are still alive. Very funny. According to the report, he continued, the spirit was supposedly a student at this school. They found her body inside a closet. Silence filled the room. She was bruised, Mike continued more quietly, and half naked. My stomach dropped immediately, so she got... I couldn't even finish the sentence. Suddenly, the fear inside me started fading, and in its place, I felt sympathy. Without another word, I opened the classroom door and stepped back into the hallway alone. The lights immediately began flickering again. Then I saw her standing there, a girl in a black dress, smiling softly while holding a knife. I'm sorry, I told her honestly. I'm sorry for what they did to you. The spirit suddenly transformed back into that giant muscular monster form. But this time, it wasn't about being scary. It was armor, a way to never feel weak or vulnerable again. Whoever did this to you, I continued carefully, I promise we'll help you get justice. She tightened her grip on the knife and slowly walked toward me. Then she suddenly raised it, ready to stab me. Yue, I said softly, it's okay to let go. Let us help you. Holding on to your anger is the prison keeping you here. For a moment, she just stood there. Then slowly, she transformed back into her normal form. I want to come with you, she whispered. I want to find him too. I nodded slowly. All right. Behind me, Noah looked at Irish. So you were flirting with an underage student. Irish immediately pointed at Yuo. Defend me. I'm 18, Yuo answered quietly. Ha! Irish yelled proudly. Scottish crossed her arms. 18 for how long? Since 1979. The room went silent. Then we all slowly packed up our equipment and headed back home in the RV. Yu quietly sat beside Irish during the drive back. At first, the atmosphere felt awkward, because honestly, none of us knew how to casually normalize having a ghost companion. So, Mac eventually asked, where's Yua sleeping? Obviously, she's sharing a room with Irish, Noah answered immediately. Hell yeah, Irish celebrated proudly. Yu laughed softly before noticing a small moon statue sitting on a hallway table. I can stay here, she offered gently. I can guard the house while you all sleep. Then suddenly, someone knocked on the front door. I opened it. Father Mick stood there holding a leash. Hello, he greeted casually. Someone dropped off this dog earlier and told me to give it to Jake. The second Jake saw the dog, it immediately rushed toward him excitedly, then suddenly it stopped in front of Yo. Everyone froze. The dog sniffed her, then happily started licking her face instead of barking. Father Mick smiled knowingly. He muttered. Well, you know what they say. Dogs can tell whether someone is good or bad. He looked around the room. So congratulations, he smiled proudly. Your ghost hunting team now officially has both a ghost and a dog.